Welcome to Pioneer Mindset, a place where we challenge our mindset and address the discomfort in both business and life by finding clarity resulting in bold conviction. I'm your host, Garrett Ruskamp, fifth generation farmer, husband, and father from rural Nebraska. Whether you're navigating frustration from past decisions or worry about the uncertainty you face today in your business, we're going to learn from our struggles and take on new challenges with a resilient mindset. Join me as I share my journey of struggles I've faced in agriculture as a farmer and family man. I'm ready to dive into honest conversations to tackle the mindsets surrounding key issues that rural ag business owners face that will ultimately help you gain control, leading to a profitable and sustainable business. Let's adapt to Pioneer Mindset and get to it. Welcome back, everyone. For this week's episode, I want to talk more about Core 4. Now, in the past, I've mentioned this, and I've mentioned it where basically Core 4 is the 4 core areas of our life that are all intertwined. Now, what are they again? Well, we're going to start with body, being, balance, and business. And today, I want to really focus on the body side of things. That's kind of the first one in the series of the Core 4. And I think the reason that it's first is because the body and how we feel can really ultimately affect all the rest of the areas of Core 4, your being, your balance, and your business. And so the one thing that I'll mention here when it comes to Core 4 is there's usually one or two of those areas that are kind of anchors, or maybe ones that get left behind that are maybe not necessarily a priority when things get busier, things get chaotic. Now, I'd say for most, and even for myself, I'd say body and being are going to be those one or two anchors that we have. And probably bodies, I'd say the biggest anchor is because we don't necessarily tend to focus on it as much. And so when we get to body, the reason I kind of want to talk about this now is that the time of year that I'm recording this is going to be kind of mid-September, just to kind of give you some context. And so we're going to be getting into harvest. Things are getting a little busier than what they currently already are. And, you're going to be sitting in a truck, sitting in a combine. Yes, you're still moving a lot, but I feel like we tend to be sitting more. And, harvest is a busy time of year, so we tend to maybe necessarily forget about body. And then after harvest, usually what's going to happen is things are going to get cooler and we're going to go into winter. And we're going to go into a time of year where it's harder for us to actually get outside and maybe get some of the exercise that we need to kind of focus on our body and work on that as well. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this right now, as I think it's very relevant. And I was actually thinking the other day, what made me think about this would be a good episode is I was busy. And when I get busy, I just tend to leave the house and just tend to go. I don't necessarily tend to, try to plan ahead for my meals for the day and what I need for staying hydrated and even just food, to fuel me. And so I was thinking, wow, I feel like there's a lot of other people that would struggle with this as well. So kind of dive into this. When I say body, what do you actually think about? What are you thinking about when I say that? Are you thinking about how you look in the mirror? How you look when you're standing there looking at yourself? Are you happy? Are you, disappointed? Are you disgusted even? What actually comes up for you? How do you think people actually see you? What's their perception of you? And so that's what I was kind of thinking about. But also, how do you feel? How do you physically feel in your own skin? How do you feel? Are you, in good health? Or are you kind of struggling with some things? How do you physically feel? And then the next part of that is, what kind of physical shape are you in? Those are some of the things that we tend to think about when we talk about our body. And so the thing that it's important to really talk about this is because, like I've mentioned before, all of these areas in our life, the core 4 areas, are all intertwined. They're all affected by each other. Our being, our balance, and our business. How you feel might affect your being, your mental state, and how you perceive yourself. Maybe some of the stories that go through your head. It might even affect your balance because, you can't keep up with your kids because you're out of shape. And it might affect your business because you can't necessarily keep up with some of the tasks that we have to do. Or maybe it's a lack of energy and we struggle with the energy side of things to stay motivated in our business and to stay on top of things. I think body can really affect each of those areas more than we even consider, more than we actually put weight to. So that's why I think it's the reasons why we need to actually make our body a priority, is because the big one there is just because they're all intertwined. We obviously want to be healthy. We want to be prosperous in life. We want to stay fit and all this other fun stuff. And I think that's great. But there's bigger reasons here that I think a guy can focus on. And I think part of that is just knowing that how we feel physically is going to affect our mental being, our balance, and our business. So I think that's a big one there. So to kind of jump in, maybe what are some of the reasons why we need to make our body our priority? Well, for me, I was kind of thinking about this, and I'd say for me, it's to set an example for my kids, set an example for the boys. It's been kind of fun when I've been on this journey of focusing on my body. I'll maybe try to go running in the morning, and the boys will wake up, and our oldest Kip, he'll come out and he'll just kind of run a lap with me, or kind of run around. Or just even the other day, I think it's very interesting because they're probably in school starting to learn more about food groups and all that stuff. And he's like, we need to eat healthier. And I was like, yes, we do. So I think it's important for us to set an example that it is important to make our body our priority. And that's one thing I feel like just in society these days, we talk about it, but do we actually carry through with it and set an example for, our kids and the next generation coming up? So I think that's a good one there. But the big one there for me was just so I could feel better. That's ultimately what set me on my journey, and why I started focusing on my body is so I could feel better. Kind of a little side story here is, it was about a couple of years ago, I actually did not feel good. I was not necessarily going through some major health issues, but I just did not feel good. I kind of had some digestive stuff going on, and just there was periods throughout my day where I just did not feel good. And that caused me to, just have lack of energy, lack of focus even, and not wanting to actually get stuff done, not being as productive as I could be, and just caused multiple areas of my life to suffer, and even the balance side of things too. And even, the back to the being was probably a big one there, is that when I did not feel good, my mental being definitely took a big hit. And I'm kind of the typical guy that gets a man cold, and I just get bogged down mentally. And so it was kind of similar to that, when I just did not feel good. And so that's what really caused me to get to focusing on this path of my body and focusing on it, making it a priority, and all of that other stuff. So that's kind of a little side note there. That's my why, is because I wanted to feel better, and I wanted to perform better as well. I think that's the next one there, is I think we all want to perform better. We want to be better for our family, be better in our business. We just want to be healthier so we can keep up to our day-to-day tasks and get those accomplished. And I think that's a big one there. But the next one here is, I think it's also important here just to take pride. Take pride in our body. Take pride in what God has given us and try to take care of it. I think that's one thing that we kind of tend to forget about, is God has given us this body. What are we going to do to take care of it? Are we going to use it as a machine or as a tool? And are we going to take care of it? Are we going to fuel it properly? Keep it fit, keep it in shape? That's one thing there I think we just kind of tend to forget about, is God gave us this body. What are we going to do to actually take care of it and to be a good steward of our own body? So that's some reasons why I think a guy should make our body a priority. And the one thing here is, I'll say, it's when it comes to doing some of these things, it is simple. It is simple, just not easy. Just not easy. So I've had some people comment before, and it's been a really good journey. I've had a pretty good transformation myself. And I have had people comment like, man, you look like you're in pretty good shape, or you look like you've lost some weight. And that definitely is fulfilling. But at the end of the day, my why was to do this for myself, do this for my future, do this for my kids, do this for my wife. All of that stuff was more internally. But it does feel good when all of your hard work has been recognized. And people ask, well, what have you done? I said, well, it's simple, not easy. And so that's kind of what I wanted to mention that there. And I wanted to kind of talk about some of the important areas when it comes to our body, what we can focus on and what we can kind of get some of the most results from, things that I have done, and kind of dive into this a little bit more. So I'd say when it comes to our body and it comes to everything that we're talking about here, is there's three really key areas that we can tend to focus on. Three areas that tend to kind of different sectors, I'd say. And the first one there is kind of obvious, which would be your diet or your nutrition. And the next one is going to be exercise. That's another obvious one. But then lastly, I would say sleep. Sleep is also one that we kind of tend to forget about, tend to definitely put on the back burner. Well, you've always heard the phrase, well, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Well, yeah, you definitely will sleep when you're dead, but it's good for us to get the adequate amount of sleep that we need now. So I want to kind of dive into nutrition or diet first. And one phrase that I want to mention here is in farming, that's something that I relate to. And when it comes to growing a crop and physically farming, raising a crop, I'd say the crop that we raise is a direct product of the soil. So take care of the soil and you'll take care of your crop. So it's kind of the same way here when it comes to our body. How we feel and how we perform is a result of what we consume. And so that's why I think it's really important for us to become aware of what we're actually consuming. And that's one thing that really changed it for me is, and I kind of go back to my story, is I did start working with, like a functional nutritionist and very good person to work with. And I was really happy. She definitely gave me a lot of the knowledge that I needed to kind of shift my mindset. Because I don't know about you, but I was just necessarily taught, trained, and conditioned to not necessarily focus on some of the stuff. I didn't know much about proteins and how they affect our body. And I didn't know before I started all this that the protein was your source of energy. There's things that I didn't necessarily know. I didn't necessarily know, some of the certain foods that were high in protein. I knew the obvious ones, your steak and your eggs. But some of the other things that have protein that are good for us, I didn't know all that stuff. I didn't know that it was good to consume electrolytes and all this other fun stuff. So I think it's good for us to find somebody that we can learn from and we can trust and we can really help us focus on our nutrition. And so most important is to start with what you can focus on. And I think that's when we can consume what's good for us. That's a very good place for us to start. So for me, I really try to focus on my protein throughout my day. As I wake up, I'm going to try to have a little bit of protein before I even start my workout. I'm going to try to stay hydrated. I'm going to try to either drink some sort of electrolyte or just some sort of just even pure water. I try to consume as much water as I can. And the hard part there for me that I always struggled with was to consume water is you get old of just straight water. And so it helps when you can mix electrolyte with there, or I've got some potassium products that I mix to help get some potassium in my body. And so that really helps when you can add flavor to that water. Really helps me consume as much water as I really need. I think that's one thing that we always kind of don't do a good enough job is staying hydrated. I think that's a big one as well. So between staying hydrated, focusing on my protein, as I record this, I've got a protein shake right next to me. And so I tend to try to focus on my protein earlier on throughout the day as much as possible. And when I get up, I try to have my protein before I even start a workout. After my workout, I try to have some more protein, whatever that looks like, maybe some yogurt, maybe some eggs, and then even mid-morning, if I can, I try to throw some more in there, like this protein shake that I'm having mid-morning. So that's kind of something that I tend to focus on. And then throughout the day, as I get to, lunchtime, really being cautious of what I'm eating, trying to get a fair amount of protein in, not necessarily eating a bunch of, bread or carbs or, all that stuff. And another side note here is I'm just telling you what I know. And honestly, today, I probably still know very little. This is stuff that I've focused on, which has really helped me. But I think I can always tend to dive in more to this so I can learn more because I am very new to this. It's only been a couple of years since I've dove into this and I've seen some results, but it's definitely not to where I could be. So I wanted to just make that a note there is because I might talk like I really know what I'm talking about, but I'm still learning here. And so if I do mess up, well, I'm sorry. But this is some stuff that I've learned, stuff that I've done. And so that's where it's something that I really tried to focus on. And the other thing there when it comes to nutrition is I think it's just important to be aware of what we're consuming and where it's coming from. If we can do our best, not necessarily to focus on a lot of processed foods, maybe focus on foods that are more grown locally, even our proteins, if we can try to focus on stuff that's just maybe a little bit healthier, I think that's going to go farther in the long run as well. And I think as we, especially not to bore you with all this stuff, but especially when it comes to harvest, because that's why I was thinking all this stuff is I tend to, when I get busy in the morning, I tend to grab what I need to throughout the day and say, okay, I'll figure out lunch later. I need to get in the truck and I need to hit the road and I need to get going. I'm not going to worry about this other stuff. And I maybe grab my water and one other bottle of water and maybe just a beef stick. And that's all I got for the entire day. And that's not realistic. That's not what I need to sustain my day. What I need is something to fuel my body throughout the day and stay hydrated. So that's where I think if we can maybe take a step back and if we do make this a priority, we can realize, okay, it looks like I'm not going to be back around the house today, so I need to actually take the time to pack a lunch, pack adequate protein, or make a sandwich, maybe throw some fruits in there, and make sure I got plenty of water, plenty of electrolytes, whatever. Just take the time to focus on it. Take the time to make this a priority. And so that's one thing there that I've learned. And back to the, what we consume is how we basically get how we perform. And so the one thing there that I'll mention is let's focus on where some of our foods are coming from. And, a lot of the foods, if we can focus on maybe improving the soil. I've talked about improving the soil for the products that we raise and overall the yield standpoint, but also from a quality standpoint as well. If we can maybe focus on the food that we're consuming, the better food that we consume, the better output, how we're going to perform, essentially. If that all makes sense, trying to get this out there as best as I can. So to kind of keep on moving here, we're going to go down to exercise next. Now, exercise, when we think of body, that's one thing that we obviously tend to think about. But I think this can be perceived as hard if you have not done much for exercise. But I think the one thing here is that I think you can start small. I think if you can maybe just start with the baby steps and work your way up. That's something that I tried to do is, if you're not working out at all now, maybe just try to get out and go for a walk. Maybe try to get 1 or 2 workouts a week, and then you can gradually work yourself up. And so especially like right now, this last summer, what I've done is I've done a lot of walking outside in the mornings. I've done a lot where I just get out and I do a walk/run, and that's been very good for me. I get out and get some fresh air in the mornings. But as I look into coming on fall, as we get into winter time, I'm kind of a fair weather exercise guy, and I think that's going to be pretty hard for me to keep that routine up. So I'm going to have to figure out something else to get my exercise in. Now we do have an exercise bike, and I've got some other stuff I can do inside, but it's just not the same. I feel like it's a lot easier for me to put my shoes on and go out and go for a walk. And so I think just starting small, realizing that just going for a walk is good, or even throughout your day. If you've got walk to the end of the driveway to go get a tractor, rather than take the four-wheeler or having somebody to give you a ride, just take the 5 minutes to go for the walk and to get that little bit of exercise in, get those steps in. I think that can be something that can be very beneficial as well. And so we definitely need to work on getting creative, especially as we get into the cooler months. That's something that I'm going to have to do is kind of get back into probably working out inside. And for me, a little side note is my workout area is actually our living room. And that's fine, but it tends to be a problem when I've got boys that just have toys everywhere. And so it's actually more work for me to work out because I have to pick up all these toys to make space for me to work out. And that's usually in my head, basically, I don't know if I can work out today. I got all these toys here, and you just tend to make these excuses. So that's one thing that we need to work on better is I think it's pretty easy for us to make these excuses. And to kind of go back to the core 4, and the reason that sometimes body tends to be an anchor is because, especially when it comes to working out, I feel like that's one that definitely gets left aside. The boys are up this morning. I can't get my workout in. I need to help be with them. That's, the balance side of things of core 4, that's going to take more priority than the workout. And so I think we need to be creative when it comes to these so we can make our body our priority. And so that way we can tend to really focus on that so we can get the results that we ultimately want. So the next one here, as we've kind of keep moving on here, is the sleep. And that's just one thing that I don't think we take seriously enough. I think it's, like I mentioned before, we can sleep when we're dead. Well, that might be true, but let's just try to get the most out of the body that we have while we currently have it and while we're currently living. So let's focus on sleep. And I think that's one thing that we need to be aware as to what our body actually needs. Maybe we can get by on 6 hours of sleep. For me, I need like a solid 7.5, 8 hours of sleep. I value my sleep a lot. And so I tend to, if I'm going to be an early riser, try to get up in the morning, try to get my routine in, then I need to go to bed early. I need to put that phone down at 10 o'clock. I need to put it down and actually go to sleep. Another little side note here is this can be a little bit tricky when, say, you and your spouse are on 2 different schedules. And, say for me and my wife, Ellen, she tends to be more of a night owl and she's not a morning person. And so it's hard for us to both actually go to sleep at the same time because she's wanting to stay up and I want to go to bed probably, a good half an hour to an hour earlier than what she does. And so I think it's important that we just maybe try to make a compromise there and just try to be just aware of trying to get to sleep on time. And the other thing here when it comes to sleep and getting rest so we can have the energy that we need to focus on our exercise, to focus on our physical workout, focus on, everything that we need to throughout the day so we have the energy to do that. We need to also realize that maybe a nap throughout the day would be a good thing as well. That's one thing I'm pretty good at. I will admit it. I have got the rest camp nap mastered pretty good. I can lay down, usually after I eat lunch. It's the perfect time to do it. Lay down for 10 minutes, get a solid power nap in, and be on my way. So maybe a nap would be good for you to implement into your day. And if that doesn't work, maybe it's just a matter of going to bed just a little bit earlier. So something to kind of keep in mind there. Now, the one thing that I just want to mention through all of this that I have mentioned is to be aware. Be aware of what you eat. Be aware of how much you exercise. Be aware of how much sleep you need. And so as I kind of get to wrapping this up, I want to really hit on that last one, is to be aware of how much sleep that you actually need. So for me, throughout the week, it's busy. I'm getting up early, maybe going to bed late, especially as we get into the busy season. That's just, we're hammering down, we're getting a lot done, trying to be as productive as you can while we're awake, trying to do the best that we can. So when I get to Sunday, for me, Sunday's kind of, I won't say necessarily my cheat day, but I'd say it's my recovery day, my rest day. It's the day that we usually don't necessarily work very much. And it's the day that I honestly sleep in. So if on my normal day, if I get up at 5:30, 5:45, well, Sundays, I might get up at 6:30. I might get up at 7. This last Sunday, I was tired. We worked pretty hard the week prior. I got up at 7:30 right before the boys did. And, there's sometimes it's hard to realize that that's okay. It's okay to sleep in. It's okay to rest because your body needs it. If you set an alarm and if you literally sleep through your alarm, maybe that's a sign that you need more sleep. Your body's telling you, you need more sleep. I don't need to wake up that alarm. So if that's the case, like I mentioned earlier, maybe you need to go to bed earlier. Put that phone down, shut that Netflix show off, and just go to sleep and realize that sleep is of value. Sleep is something that we need to prioritize as well. So the one thing here that I want to mention as I kind of wrap this up are some key takeaways. Now, I think it's important as we get through this process and this journey is to set goals. Set goals is something that's going to help you strive to do better, strive to get through the hard times. And I think you also need to find the discipline to stick to those goals. Find the discipline. I think discipline is something that we can benefit a lot from. Finding that discipline to stick to, I'm going to get up every morning at 5:30, but maybe the harder discipline is I'm going to go to bed at 9:30. And so you need to find the discipline to get up, get outside, go for that walk, even when it's not very nice out, or do the workout, even when the kids get up. Try to get the workout in, try to get your exercise in, have the discipline to not reach for that candy bar, to reach maybe more for a banana, have the discipline to eat that extra egg in the morning, or just have the discipline. That's a big one there. But at the end of the day, the one thing I think is also important is to give yourself some grace, especially if you're just starting in on this. Give yourself a little bit of grace, because if we don't, I tend to be kind of hard on myself. I tend to be like, well, if I can't get this right, I'm just not going to do it. Well, that's not going to get us where we want to go either. That's not going to get us to our goals. So I think give yourself some grace. I think it's important to really focus on the discipline, focus on your goals and where you want to go and how you want to get there, but give yourself some discipline if you fall a little short, because the odds are you're doing better than what you are now. So the other thing I want to mention here is it might be hard, but what's the alternative? What's the alternative if you don't focus on your body, if you don't focus on your nutrition, if you don't focus on your physical workouts and your exercise or your sleep? What's the alternative right now if you don't change your habits and if you don't make your body a priority? You got to answer that one for yourself. And the other thing here is if you don't focus on it, who will? If you don't focus on your body, nobody else is going to. So if you don't make it a priority, where are you going to be in the next 10, 15, 20 years? Or if you're not currently happy with looking in the mirror, what are you going to be in 10 years? Are you going to be happy with your body then? If you don't focus on it? If you don't focus on it, who will? So I want to just kind of leave that there as we wrap this episode up, because I think it's very important for us to focus on our body. And, maybe for you, this isn't a priority, and maybe you're getting by just fine. But I think kind of going back to the top here and what we discussed is your body, your being, your balance, and your business. There's always going to be one of those areas that holds you back. There's always going to be one of those areas that's an anchor. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, we want all of those to be on point. to be the best that we can be, to use our body that God has given us to the best and its fullest ability. So I think if you don't focus on it, who will? And I think that's one really good reminder that we can keep in mind to basically make this a priority. And I just want to speak because I've done this. I've tried to do my best to do this. I fall short. I have to give myself some grace sometimes. I don't always get my workouts in, but at the end of the day, I definitely feel better after I do it. I definitely feel like my mind is more clear. I feel like I've done my best to work towards a better future, and I've done something to actually take control. This is something that I can control. I didn't hit on that, but your body is something that you can control in an environment and in society where so much is out of our control. Let's actually focus on what we can actually control. So I really hope you found value in this. And if there's anything that you'd like to discuss, if there's any resources that you might have that you would like to pass on to me, I'd love to hear those as well. I'm always loving to learn more about this area. But if you struggle with this area as well, keep it on, because there's so much fruit that you can actually gain from focusing on your body, your physical health, and everything of that nature. So I'd love to hear from you. If you have anything more you'd like to discuss on this, just feel free to reach out. But I hope you found value in this. I hope this hits home for you, and this is something that resonates with you as well. But for now, get to getting and focus on your body. That's all I got. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for tagging along with me today as we sharpened our mindsets. If you've gained insight from today's episode, be sure to take a screenshot to share or send this episode to somebody who might also find value in it. For more, follow me on Instagram @GarrettRuskamp or on Facebook, and join me next time for more conviction through clarity.